We are here today to bear witness to the execution of Horace Pinker, whose unspeakable atrocities have horrified the people of this great state.
Wes Craven, iconic horror director, he got effed over on the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So I think he created Shocker like as an FU to New Line Cinema. Mm-hmm. Be like, I'll create another one.
Yeah. Guys, welcome to another episode of Katie Afraidy. I'm your host, Katie Hettenbach. And today we have the awesome, the hilarious. He's at the Comedy Store all the time. He's in the Jellies, the cartoon, and he is the roast battle guy, champion of the world. In my heart and in reality, it's Earl Skakel.
Well, I'm not the champion, but I was the people's champion.
You're the people's champion, and that's all that matters.
I love it. Little Freddy Krueger.
Little Freddy.
Which is still the scariest commercial I've ever seen for the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
Okay.
Because no one knew anything about the movie, and just the way they shot the commercial, I got scared.
The trailer or like
the trailer?
Okay, got it. I was like, did they do like a branded thing?
No, it was just I guess a commercial / trailer for it, and I'm like, it was so scary because the first few Nightmare on Elm Streets were very, they were meant to scare you, and then later on it got more humorous, with the one-liners, and but the first one specifically was very scary, especially in a theater.
I have to say, I think my first interaction with you was during Don Barris's set, and you just were kind of looming in the background, and you did the Don will always ask during his set, or he'll be like, Don, there's a question in the back,
right? And
you were like, oh, hi, my name's
Harvey from Miramax.
Miramax. They're having a table read down the hall.
Yeah.
And then you'd come back 2 minutes later and just explaining your bit to the people, and that's okay. But it's come back as Bob from Miramax.
Bob. Could somebody answer my brother's question? You have to, late night at the Comedy Store.
So good.
You really have
it's
to.
So good.
You're not going to get that stuff at the Laugh Factory.
No.
Said you got Tom Arnold bombing for an hour. Jesus Christ! The people who work in this business it's mind blowing who works in this business. And I like Tom Arnold. He was good in True Lies, but that was 30 years ago. Come on, man. You gonna book Barry Diamond next? Fuck.
Who's next? Man?
Who's that? Who knows?
Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby touring theaters.
Going on tour.
Nobody cares. It just doesn't matter. Nobody cares. OJ got tickets to the Bills game this weekend.
I mean,
like someone that this guy's killed two people.
He didn't do it. The glove didn't fit.
Yeah. I know. You can still kill people if the glove doesn't exactly fit. Like that, I never got that. I'm not even trying to be funny. Like
you should be a lawyer.
I really should be. Like I would have been like, Judge, it doesn't fit perfectly, but we've all worn shoes that were too small and we operated fine. I mean, that's a good point. It kind of fits with the horror vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
OJ was my neighbor as a child. He was cool with me.
Was he actually?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He'd throw me the football. Stallone was my neighbor. By the way, I got this shirt. Anyone who knows me is one of my favorite movies, Cobra, on Sylvester Stallone's website. The fuck is this guy selling T-shirts for? This guy doesn't make enough money. He's got to hawk $40 T-shirts. Like, it's unbelievable. Most of my T-shirts are older than the girls I date. Hello.
Heyo. Swing.
Right.
Okay. So.
I feel like I've talked enough.
You're good. You're golden. You told me a while ago that I had to watch this movie. We watched Shocker.
Yes.
Why did you want me to watch this?
Well, because speaking of Stallone getting effed over, Wes Craven, iconic horror director, he got effed over on the Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
Yes.
Like I forget why, but it was a very similar story to Stallone where the studio cut him out. And so you think there were 5 Nightmare on Elm Streets, 1 Freddy vs. Jason.
Yeah.
So 6, and then the remake with Jackie Earl Haley. That's 7 films basically in this franchise, and he gets no money. Like, he created it.
Yeah.
Like, how is that possible?
And I believe he stopped directing them at Dream Warriors. I think that was his last movie with the franchise.
Right. But, when I was not a kid, but an early adult, and you'd see Nightmare on Elm Street 4, 5, it would say created by Wes Craven. Like, oh, this guy gets the money. That's how
It's
I
like
thought.
he doesn't get anything, which
So
is crazy.
I mean, it's so mind-blowing to see, like, people like Wes Craven and Stallone get effed over in this business. So you can imagine what happens to people like you and me and,
Oh, yeah.
and Hot Tub Johnny over there. Like, he gets effed over, I'm sure. I mean, if you saw the Comedy Store Wrestling podcast, it's the best podcast that ever got 100 numbers or less. Whew. I knew that writing was on the wall when my energy drink reviews were getting more numbers. Welcome to Hollywood. So I think he created Shocker like as an FU to New Line Cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, I'll create another one.
Yeah.
And it got the big. This is when you had to go to a movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
It was 1989, and Shocker got the big billboard in Westwood, which, to people who don't live in L.A., Westwood was the go-to movie spot. It's still where every premiere is. Outside of the Chinese theater, they usually have a big premiere at the Man Bruin, which is still there. So if you got that big billboard in Westwood, it's like, this is the next big movie. And I love it. I mean, I watch it it's always on cable or DirecTV, satellite, cable. People are like, what's cable? And I don't know why it didn't do better. I think it had an operating budget of like $4 million. It made, I think, close to 20. So it made money. And it's a cult, still has a cult following. And I think Mitch, now I've heard 2 ways to pronounce his name. It's either Pelegi or Pelegi. I'm going to say Pelegi, but if you like X-Files, he was Horace Pinker in Shocker, but he's most known for X-Files.
Got it. Okay.
He was great. Like, he had a very Robert Englund vibe to him, and I thought the story of he gets his powers through electricity. I thought it was kind of innovative.
Yeah.
Or maybe not innovative, but creative.
Yeah.
And, there were some parallels to Nightmare on Elm Street.
100%. I was like, wait, this is...
Yeah.
I was like, did this come out before or after? I'm like, oh, it came out after.
Yeah, I think it came out after 3.
Yeah.
And, it's a great cast.
Oh,
when
it's
you look
awesome.
At Peter Berg, who's now a huge director. Also dated Whitney Cummings. I mean, that's probably his best credit. I mean, and then Michael Murphy was the dad, and he was like the go-to dad in like those 80s kind of horror films. And then who else was in it? Kane Roberts, the guitar player from Alice Cooper, who was huge at that time. And the soundtrack might have done better than the movie.
It was pretty good. It went hard, if you will.
Well, it was bands that were popular at the time, like Megadeth, and the main song was, I guess, a collaboration with Paul Stanley from Kiss, Michael Anthony from Van Halen, Tommy Lee, Vivian Campbell from Def Leppard and Whitesnake. It was a very a lot of 80s metal type bands, which was probably in 1989. That was like the peak of 80s glam, before like Nirvana and bands like that just made all those bands have to get real jobs. So it was set to be like a big franchise, but it just didn't. I don't know why there wasn't a sequel.
I understand why.
Okay, because we're different generations.
Oh, for sure. But I also I love a good campy
right
80s movie. I love, especially horror. Like campy horror is one of my favorite. But it definitely needed more to make it have a sequel. I thought it was a fun concept and I enjoyed it, but I also was very confused at a point because I was like, wait, I understand. So for those of you who haven't seen it, it's about a serial killer who's running around killing families left and right. And then this is where I was confused. The main character, who looks like he's 40 but playing a teenager, he has like dreams where he's like, he sees the killer but the killer can't touch him.
Looking back, there were definitely some plot. I don't know if you call them plot holes. Or,
Yeah.
I think I would guess he was in a rush to maybe beat out the next Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
Yeah. I believe it was shot in only 10 days.
And they also had a major problem with the special effects.
10 weeks. Sorry.
I was going to say 10 days. It wasn't
That's
that
way
bad.
That's no.
But I was reading where the special effects person halfway through the film had a nervous breakdown.
Fair enough.
And so he just left, and no one knew where the negatives were to all his work. So Wes Craven's literally hiring cousins and interns to go to every studio and every place that they had worked on the special effects, and no one knew where they were because they were like in unmarked boxes.
Oh, geez.
So if you look at the final cut, I guess, that made it into theaters, the special effects look pretty hokey.
Yeah.
But to me, it worked.
Oh, it works. It just is like, what's happening? I'm a little confused. But it also could be, so initially, same thing with Scream, and I'm sure Nightmare on Elm Street. Craven, when he showed this to the, is it the MPAA? Is that what it is? The MPAA. It had a rated X rating because they had like way more violent shit happening, and they had to cut all of it out to get an R.
Yeah,
rating.
I think one of the scenes they cut out was, I forget which character, he ate their fingers.
Yeah,
and
one of the
spits it out.
cops. Yeah. It was gnarly. Like the killer in the movie, he like bites a guy's lip, and the lip is like so stretchy, and it just like and I was like, well, I don't know if a lip could do that, but oh man, it's gnarly to think about, and that's a gnarly shot.
Yeah, it's that scene specifically. That's probably one of the scenes they just left in. It's like, we can't cut much more out of this movie. We have to leave some violence in.
Yeah, they also had a longer, because the killer gets the electric chair, and that's why it's called Shocker, because he gets his power through that, because he's talking to the devil, ? Is that what I got? That's what I got.
I think so.
Okay, some type of demon.
But
that is like when you die, whatever, then he like gives him the power of electric to like once he dies, he can like if someone else touches him, he can transfer into that person.
Which I love, because there's the one at the start of the movie was the little girl.
The little girl was the best part. Her going fucking and just her swearing. I love when little kids swear in movies.
Oh, it's the best.
It's so funny. But her especially when she's driving the dump truck. So funny. And she hits him with it. It's so good.
Great facial expressions.
Yeah.
I'm assuming she was an actor even at that young age. But, I love it in movies. Like, probably some of my favorite scenes were The Bad News Bears, the original movie, where there was a shortstop named Tanner, and he was like the little kid who was always swearing. It was so funny. Some of the words he said was like, Jesus. They had to go to his parents. Hey, do you mind if your kid drops an N-bomb? It's essential to
Jesus,
the scene.
you're like, it's needed. Trust me.
How much is he getting paid? Yeah, he can say it.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
So, but I really almost like it more than Freddy Krueger. Like, that's a great power to have, where you can just morph into someone else. And I mean, it's been done before, like, but I just really liked that, the electrical aspects of, if you look at this room right now, there's, probably 10 electrical outlets or, everything's attached in here to electricity. So it's like a never-ending power.
Yeah.
And the way he played the, Mitch, because I don't want to butcher his last name, because he's one of my favorite actors. But, before I came on, I was like, I want to say his last name right. I've always said Pelegi. But then I saw an interview with him in the X-Files and said Pelegi. Because he was also in Sons of Anarchy, which is, he had played a white supremacist.
Oh, good.
Well, it's funny in the interview. He's like, I had to go pick up my kids after shooting, and I'd have all these swastikas on me, and I was like covering up.
Yikes.
He's a really, he's an actor.
Yeah.
And you can just plug him into anything. He was in like the reboot of Dallas, where he played a billionaire. So he's very good at characters. So I do wish there would have been at least one more in the franchise, just to, because no villain ever dies in these movies.
Oh yeah, in Shocker, they did set it up for a sequel
100%
by having what is the killer's name? What's his
Horace
name?
Pinker.
Horace Pinker. Love it. Horace
Come on.
Pinker going through. I'm terrible with names. I'm terrible. Pinker going through the satellite, and he's like, "I'm worldwide, bitch."
Right.
And he's like going off, and he's like, "Well, here we go."
Because I think if they would have done another one in '91, it could have worked.
Yeah.
But I think, Nightmare on Elm Street, it never really dipped that much. It always was successful at the box office, especially the opening weekend. It would kill. And then Freddy vs. Jason. I just don't think there was space for him to squeeze it in there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, hey, it's for you. You need to write Shocker 2.
I mean, I don't see Mitch being interested in reviving a movie from, would that be almost 35 years ago? But that would be cool. That's never been done before, where the sequel was 35 years later. And he still looks the same. Like, he has not aged. Is Wes Craven passed away, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be tough to carry on his legacy.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know if because like you said, it's a very campy movie.
Yeah.
It's not very serious, which is so different than the first Nightmare on Elm Street, which was, like I said, the trailer on TV was frightening, because it's very dark.
Yeah.
It was very spooky music, but not like, it was, like in Shocker, the soundtrack was almost goofing on the times that we're in. So I don't know. Like, you could bring him back 35 years later.
I think you could. It'd be great.
I don't know if Peter Berg would be down.
Probably not. But hey, you know what? You can any amount of money.
Oh yeah,
maybe.
people do anything.
People do anything.
But one time I used to work at Sports Connection in Santa Monica. It's a gym. It's where the John Travolta movie Perfect was filmed, which is basically you talk about campy. It was a spoof on the '80s meat market scene at gyms. So I'm working there one night, and I had the Shocker soundtrack in my car, because when there's no Spotify, you had to take a CD, stick it in your player, and play it. So I really love that soundtrack. And I go to work, and Pete Berg walks in. This is maybe '91, so it's not really far off from the filming. He goes, works out. I run to my car. He's walking out. I'm like, hey, Pete, can you sign this for me? And he's like, oh, you like Megadeth? I'm like, no, I like Kiss. And he just signed it and walked out. He's like, oh, beat it, kid. Because that was not a popular time for Kiss. So Megadeth was like, probably they were at their peak. And, they were famous because Dave Mustaine got kicked out of Metallica, which he probably regrets. But, we all make mistakes.
Yeah, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days.
It's one thing to, like, get kicked off of some shitty TV show, but when you're kicked off the biggest band in the world for 30 years, like I just saw them play SoFi Stadium, you couldn't move. There wasn't a square inch that you could move. Their stage is unlike anything I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
So, Megadeth is probably playing a House of Blues and, Temecula. So, I mean, when you get kicked out of Metallica for doing drugs, you've got a problem.
Yeah, because I feel like they all do something.
At that time in the 80s,
yeah.
they literally left him on the side of the road.
Oh.
That's how bad he was. They kicked him off the bus and like, sorry, bro.
Well.
So, but if any billionaire is out there and you'd like to reboot Shocker, we could get Mitch on board, a few extra zeros on the paycheck. Like you said,
could.
actors will do any gig.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I will, but,
I will too.
Yeah.
With all these streaming platforms, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, and Tubi, was it the one that starts with an F? Is it Freebie?
Probably.
They need content. So as crazy as it sounds, someone's going to listen to this and go, I remember that movie. Yeah.
I should do that. I should do that.
We'll look good at 4 a.m. after a Byron Allen talk show.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Do it. Do it. So obviously there's in the movie there's a big the Pinker, he gets electrocuted.
Yes.
And he's sentenced to death. So my question to you is that if you were being sentenced to death, how would you want to do it, and what would your final meal be?
What's funny, someone just asked me a similar question last night at the Comedy Store. They're like,
good.
No, but it's completely different, but it's similar. They're like, if you were, because I'm obsessed with plane crashes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I literally go on YouTube 1 or 2 times a week, and I listen to the actual voice recordings of plane crashes. Like, it's it's crazy. Like, but it's so haunting.
Yeah.
And then the comments are they're kind of funny. Like, I listened to this one last night. This has nothing to do with horror movies, but in a way it does.
Yeah.
Where after a plane hits 130 knots on the runway, they have to take off. Does not matter what's going on. They can't stop. So if Godzilla is in front of them, they have to take off. So the guy's like 130, and okay, we're rolling, which means they're pulling back, and the tower neglected to tell them that at the end of the runway there was construction. So there was like a dump truck or something, and so they took off. The wing clipped the dump truck. It flies off, and you hear the pilots talking to each other. Like, you hear the one guy go, "Oh fuck," and then 2 minutes later you hear the big crash, and you hear the co-pilot say, my skin's burning, I can't and then it cuts off. And then the first comment on YouTube was, pussies. Like, what? That's like... So the guy was like, Earl, if you
Jesus Christ.
If you knew you were on a plane crash and it was going down and you weren't going to survive, what would you do? I'm like, I'd fuck every girl on that plane. I mean, what are you going to Me Too me? Probably even squeeze in a guy just for variety. So how would I want to be electrocuted? Or how would I want to be... I mean, I love it when bad guys get punished. So I love it when there's a botched injection and they have to do it again. And the guy's like sitting there, it's not working. I don't know what's going on. I would not want to die I want to die quick. So... I mean, lethal injection. Now they're doing fentanyl, so I could probably just hit up a comic friend and just have him give me a dose. But
that'd be good.
That would be a painful death.
Yeah.
I mean, firing squad would be cool, just because I think the tough part about a firing squad would just be the anticipation.
Yeah.
Of seeing 10 guys with guns.
Also, why 10? That's so many.
Well, I think in Utah that's how they did it. That's one of my favorite Tommy Lee Jones. Big difference. He was Gary Gilmore.
Okay.
I think the movie's called The Executioner Song.
Got
he was like the first guy in Utah to die from a firing squad.
Oh.
This is early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, wow, that must, because bullets kill you instantly.
Yeah. But like 10, that's so excessive.
And to see them line up, I can't imagine that feeling. So I would
Yeah.
want to. I don't know what the quickest way to die is. I guess a firing squad.
Yeah.
Because lethal injection, I think, it first starts to close your arteries, so you don't die right away.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they don't. I hope they suffer. How would you want to die?
I think firing squad seems like the quickest way. But yeah, no, I don't want to do the lethal injection. I think they put you to sleep first and then they do it. But it doesn't feel like, you still kind of feel it, and it doesn't feel good.
And electrocutions, like,
I don't think they do those anymore, do they? Or a public hanging?
I mean, that I think you would still feel for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But like how Horace Pinker died, you still feel it for a few, and I'm glad you do. Like,
Yeah.
if you killed someone or whatever you did. But in regards to the movie, that's a great way for him to die. It gives him more power.
Yeah.
So, I don't plan on ever doing anything to put
That's
me in
good.
the position.
Yeah.
Unless I could get, I don't know, a couple improv spots. I mean, it's unbelievable who gets on these lineups, man. It's like, fuck me, man.
He deserved more. Give Earl more spots.
Yes, please. If you're watching out there, don't worry about the funny.
100%. So your final meal, what would that be?
Final meal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it doesn't matter if it's got fat or carbs in it. I would make it like a 40-course meal just to fuck with the prison staff.
Okay.
I'll assume that's not an option. They're like, all right, dude, you get one plate.
Yeah, I think it is just one plate, but I would also...
Steak. I mean, I'm health conscious, but like at that point, I'd probably eat all the stuff I don't eat. Ice cream, cheesecake, mashed potatoes.
I would say for mine, for food, probably Portillo's chocolate cake. Just a large piece of honestly, no, an entire cake of Portillo's.
Because you're skinny. Do you work out? What's your deal?
I am a runner. I have a runner's body.
Right.
So that is why.
And what got you into horror films so much?
That's a great question. I don't know. I started when I was little watching like the old, or the original, I shouldn't even say old, the original Scooby-Doo, and that was like creeped me out a little bit, but I liked it. But that like eased me into like, reading Goosebumps, and I think my first horror film was the Orphan in like middle school, and I hated it, but I was like, let me keep watching stuff. And it's kind of just, I don't know, I even in high school I wasn't like a big fan of them. I don't know what like started it, but it's kind of like loomed. I've always loved like the dark history of stuff, so horror films just kind of became my obsession.
Oh, I love them. Like, I grew up in the perfect, because now I find the horror films,
they're okay.
CGI.
Yeah.
They just hire like really good looking actors, to play the young kids about to get slaughtered. But there was a charm about the horror movies of my youth, where, like you said, some of the kids were like in their 30s playing kids. Like,
Yeah.
but there was an authenticity. Like that first Nightmare on Elm Street, you almost felt like you were watching a documentary. Like,
Oh yeah.
like it was real almost. And then with each one it got a little hokier,
Yeah.
and
then Shocker, and then but Shocker's real. It's based on a true story. He's out there still.
I mean,
Pinker.
Yeah, Horace Pinker. Like, if you're out there, what if he just came through one of these
He's like,
cameras right now?
and then I start like murdering you
We got,
both
like-
with a microphone.
We got really bad special effects.
Yeah.
But I don't really like Scream was good. I liked the first Scream. I thought that was well done. It was a good cast. The great David Arquette,
Oh yeah.
favorite son of the Comedy Store. Has
The
he done this
best.
podcast?
He has not done the podcast.
He will though. I'll make it.
I would
happen.
love. I would cry. I would cry. Both Dewey and Eight-Legged Freaks.
And his biggest credit is being the world-class championship wrestling heavyweight champion. He was WCW champ.
That's so funny.
Well, the world of stand-up comedy is very political.
Oh, yeah.
But the world of pro wrestling is even more political.
Oh, I can imagine.
So you can imagine if you're, say, this is for John, if you're like Ric Flair, Sting, Lex Luger, you're breaking your body for 20 years, you get to the big time finally, and they put the heavyweight championship on an actor who's never wrestled before. So the fans hated him for a very long time.
Oh, for sure. I can imagine.
So when he would come to the Comedy Store late night, Don Barris would put him up. I'm not sure if he was completely sober, but he would be on stage for like an hour.
Oh, good. Oh, my God.
And it was like watching Tony Robbins. He would give these like motivational talks. And like people would heckle him, and I would just chant WCW, and he'd say, "No, Earl, you're a champion." But he got me all like
what?
jacked up. So
you're like, say it again, please.
So Scream was like the last horror movie I've checked out of the.
Yeah.
I just, like that horrible. Was it the remake of My Bloody Valentine?
Yeah, that was terrible.
But the first one's
good.
That's probably outside of Shocker my favorite horror movie of the last. I guess that was 1980, so the last 40 years, because it was very much in the vein of that first Nightmare on Elm Street, where it was scary.
Yeah.
Because the special effects, they had no budget. It was just a bunch of Canadian actors. It's filmed in Canada, because that's how they were. I think one of the first film productions to go to Canada, and that's the scariest movie to this day I've ever seen in a theater. Just because, who was the bad guy's name? Harry Warden.
Okay.
And it was kind of a semi-similar plot to Shocker, where it was just a lone wolf. The guy, I think, saw his dad get killed.
Okay.
And so he started killing when he got of age all the town. And they had a party on Halloween, and he started killing all the people. And people thought it was Harry Warden coming back, but it was actually his son who saw the murder.
Okay.
So, and they left it open for a great sequel. It never happened, but
it should have.
There's a few movies like that.
It's lame.
I love it when they leave it open for a sequel, and the movie. I don't think Nightmare or My Bloody Valentine did very well at the box office.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I don't think it did well either.
But then the sequel, or not the sequel, but the remake with David Boreanaz.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man, get out of town.
Terrible.
His manager tried to touch my pee-pee once, but
well,
that was my first. I didn't happen.
Okay.
I didn't want to make it that bad.
Fair enough.
I've almost been Me Too'd a few times. Well, almost. A couple times. I mean, let's be honest. Shocker, it's not like you can talk about the movie for 2 hours. It's
true. Yeah, true.
Like Nightmare on Elm Street, we could talk for probably 2 hours because it's 6 sequels and spin-offs. But with Shocker,
there's not much. There's not much to it. There's just a killer going around possessing, if you will, through shocks and trying to kill the main character.
And I thought they got rid of the blonde girl too quick.
They murdered her so fast, and they were like, "Wait, we'll bring her back, but as a ghost." I'm like, okay, what? Now people, what? I don't know. And
they didn't have great chemistry. Like, you can tell when people kiss on screen.
Yeah,
you could tell Pete Berg was almost putting his thumbs in front of her lips to do like a stage kiss.
Yeah,
they did not have a good. It was very similar to I would say Richard Gere and Julia Roberts. You could tell they didn't have a vibe in Pretty Woman, but it was a great movie.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
But Shocker's like the horror movie the horror franchise that could have been, but it just, like I said, great cast, innovative, slightly rip off of Freddy Krueger, but it just. Back then, if your movie didn't do well, you were done.
Yeah.
Like John Travolta had one bomb that killed his career for 10 years. And then Pulp Fiction, so.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, and then Hairspray.
That was like Stallone and Rhinestone, but
I mean,
but
if it works, it works. Again, actors will do anything.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at Stallone and Travolta, like they've had as many bombs as they've had hits, but they keep going. They just keep plowing along. Look at most action stars will, do a sequel or. You could offer any of those action stars who haven't gotten in the first 3 Expendable movies a spot in the 4th one, and they would do it in 2 seconds.
True.
Now, that's going to be a big movie. Steven Seagal's an asshole when he can't get in any of them.
You're like, come on, put Steven in them. Also,
he
maybe
really
don't,
should.
maybe
I mean,
don't.
I should cast the 4th Expendables movie.
You should do that.
I'd be a great casting agent.
I think you would be great. Yeah.
Because I've got an ear. I've got an ear for the actors.
You're like, I know the talent. I got it.
And there are so many people who should be in the Expendables that haven't been in the first. You got Carl Weathers. How could you not have Apollo Creed?
Put everyone in there. Yeah.
Terry Crews.
Dude. Oh.
I like Terry Crews, but he's got no background in action movies.
Yeah. He should, because he seems like he would be the guy. But
right.
Also, yeah.
But if you need a huge black dude, how do you not pair Stallone again with Apollo Creed? People would mark out.
Yeah.
So you get him, you get Seagal, you get Jeff Speakman from The Perfect Weapon. One and done, Jeff Speakman. They gave him one shot. Movie bombed. You're out.
Get out of here. Yeah.
Who else? There's. But now we're delving into. I hope they do one last Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Maybe they bring Horace Pinker in.
Yeah.
That's how you could do it.
Pinker versus Freddy Krueger.
Well, you could just have a gangbang. You just one blowout. You could have Pinker, Freddy Krueger, Jason, maybe Deputy Dewey. Get
He's
Arquette in there.
Coming.
He would do it.
Back from the dead.
I mean, when he did a short film with me, you knew he'd do it pretty much any gig. So.
Fair.
It's out of control. He said yes.
Okay, well, here we go.
So
funny.
That would be a good movie. You could do a horror movie version of The Expendables.
I like that. I think, yeah.
Where what other iconic horror? What's
that would
the guy
be
with the needles?
Hellraiser. Hellraiser. You could get Ghostface up in there. You could get, who else? What do you got? The Evil Dead. Oh, Michael
what's
Myers.
his guy's name from Evil Dead?
There's not really a name.
But the actor, was it Bruce?
Bruce Campbell.
Right. You get Bruce Campbell in there.
You can get It can come back. You can get Leprechaun in there. You could get
Creature of the Black Lagoon.
Mark Wahlberg from Fear.
Is that considered a horror movie?
Yes. Yes.
Really?
I like to consider it a horror movie. It's a horror movie in my heart.
Well, that's how some of my comedy friends act. They just don't let go of a girl. That could have been a documentary on the comedy scene. Just, you know how many times I've seen comics like this at the patio? you fucking creeps.
They are creeps.
Well, that's because I saw that. I'm like, I don't know what I consider Fear.
I think it's considered a horror movie. Yeah.
I mean, I guess.
A thriller? I think it's a thriller, but still. So, out of 10, what do you think Shocker is?
I mean, if you're comparing it to the original Frankenstein, it's about a 2.
But for you,
well, Shocker to me is like Vietnam. You either were there or you weren't. So, if you grew up in the 80s, the late 80s specifically, it's a solid 7.
Okay.
How old are you?
I'm 25.
So to a 25-year-old, you know nothing about the 80s. You know nothing about the bands who were in the soundtrack. Like when Kane Roberts was the construction worker and he's about to kill. You don't know who Kane Roberts is, which I'm assuming no 25-year-old does, but, even though he's a very famous guitar player. But a while ago, I think someone your age would probably give it a 2.
Okay. But
I mean, how old are you? Can John talk on this?
Yeah.
So you're still young enough to not know who Kane Roberts is, or appreciate that soundtrack. I mean, that soundtrack, I'm not gonna lie to you, it doesn't necessarily hold up.
But it is fun though. Like I gave it a 5.
The soundtrack or the movie?
The movie. I gave it a 5.
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was very fun. I originally gave it lower, and I was like, no, I enjoyed it. Like after you watch a movie, whatever number you think of right away, that's the correct number. Don't overthink it. I was like, nope, 5. I really had fun, and it did what it needed to do. Some of the scenes were creepy and weird, and I would have enjoyed seeing the X version or the rated X version to see what they did and how more violent that could be.
Might have made it more scary.
Yeah.
Or more ghoulish, less humorous. But I think after Nightmare on Elm Street 3, the way of horror movies was to make them funny.
Yeah.
With almost like Stallone and Schwarzenegger type one-liners, like "I'll be back" or "Stick
it's
around." It's
prime time, bitch.
Right. So, I would have loved. I think they could have done a sequel. Now, I think if the movie came out and it didn't do great, you could do a sequel on, say, Netflix.
Yeah.
But back then, there was no, obviously, streaming options. So, literally, you got one chance with a movie.
Yep, and then it's done. It's a one and done.
If it didn't do well, it's just, you move on. And so it's unfortunate that, I don't want to say it was ahead of its time. Because it wasn't.
Definitely was. But it is really a fun movie that I think regardless of when you watch it, what age, I mean, not what age, but like, if you watched it 30 years ago, if you watched it, 2 days ago, I think it still has the same fun, campy, I mean, it's just, it's fun. It's a fun movie. Well, Earl, thank you so much. And thank you to our sponsor, Filmcraft Studio Gear. You can find them in store or at filmcraftla.com or on Instagram at filmcraftla. And also thank you to Fangoria. We are on the Fangoria Podcast Network, so check them out. And if you want a copy of Fangoria magazine, use code KatieAfraidy25 to get 25% off. Guys, stay spooky, and if you are getting electrocuted because you just committed a bunch of murders, how about you just die and don't come back with special powers by the devil and then possess people via shocking. Don't do that. Cool. Thanks. Bye, guys.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.